During my junior year, I had begun taking required education courses to become a teacher. Father Louis Banan, a Jesuit priest from whom I took psychology of education, encouraged me to pursue a high school teaching career. He was gentle and kind to me like Mr. Lima, my sixth grade teacher. He taught me by continuously asking questions, which engaged us in a heated but respectful discussions. My plans to become a high school teacher, however, were changed a few months before graduation. The fall quarter of my senior year, I received a letter in the campus mail from Professor Bernard Cronick, chairman of the Political Science Department and director of fellowships, informing me that I had been nominated by the university for Woodrow Wilson Fellowship. He asked that I come by his office to pick up the application form. After my afternoon class, I went to see him. "Thank you for coming. Please have a seat," he said in a low and reserved voice. He was a short, stocky man with glasses and was bald over the front and top of his head. He loosened his tie and took off his tight-fitting sport coat and draped it over the back of the chair. "Congratulations, Frank," he said, leaning forward and handing me a large envelope. "This is the application form you need to fill out." "Thank you." I took the envelope and placed it on my lap. The Woodrow Wilson Fellowship Program is designed to encourage college students to consider college teaching as a career, but I am planning to teach high school. Have you thought of teaching at a college level?" "No," I shook my head. "Well, you shouldn't rule it out. As I said, these national fellowships are to encourage bright students like you to pursue college teaching. Think about it." "I will," I responded half-heartedly, glancing down at the thick envelope. "It's already an honor to be nominated, so don't be too disappointed if you're not awarded one. These fellowships are very competitive." I thanked him and went back to my room, sat on my desk, and opened the envelope. I read through the application, thinking, I am not smart enough to teach in college. That evening, after closing the language tab, I told Laura about being nominated for the fellowship. "That's wonderful. Congratulations." When I told her that I wasn't sure I should apply, that the applications was really long and I didn't have time to fill it out, she said, "You've got to be kidding." I remained silent for a few seconds as she patiently waited for a response. I glanced at her and then looked down and said, "I don't think I have a chance." "Of course you do," she said, smiling. "Why would the university nominate you if you didn't?" Suddenly I felt more weight on my shoulders. "If you don't apply, you won't get the fellowship," she added. I worked on the application every day for several days. I wrote a personal statement describing my childhood experiences and explaining why I wanted to be a teacher. I asked Father Shanks, Dr. Vary, and Father O'Neill for the letters of recommendation. Unfortunately, Dr. Hardman de Bautista had left the university, so I could not ask her for one. A few weeks later, after I mailed the application, I received a letter from the Woodrow Wilson Foundation informing me that I was a regional finalist. I felt happy, but again worried. The possibility of going to a graduate school for a doctorate scared me. When I found out that I had an interview the following week at Stanford University, where the regional finalists were being screened, I felt even more tense. I rushed to see Father O'Neill to tell him about it. "Good for you," he said in a soft, raspy voice. He stood up and shook my hand. "Good for you," he repeated. He sat down slowly and placed his trembling hand on his lap. "I am worried about the interview. I don't think I'll do well." "Of course you will. You have to be confident. Remember, God is on your side." "When is the interview?" "Next week, Wednesday at 2:00. You should dress nicely. Wear the suit Mrs. Hancock gave you." "It's too big," I said. Even though it had been 2 years, I still couldn't get her husband's pinstripe suit to fit. "Oh, it doesn't matter," he said thoughtfully. "Just be sure to wear a tie." He got up slowly, moved behind his desk chair, and braced himself on the back of it with both hands. Can you do me a favor and accompany me to Macy's at Valley Fair? I need to buy some socks. It won't take long." "Sure, I'd be happy to." I wondered why he invited me but I thought it would be disrespectful to say no. As we headed to the Jesuit parking lot in the back of Varsity, I noticed he leaned slightly forward and his shoulders drooped a bit more than they had the year before. We drove to a large shopping center, which is about 3 miles from campus, and parked the white two-door sedan near Macy's. I followed him to the men's department where he picked up 3 pairs of black socks. He then made his way to the suit section and began examining various styles and colors. "What size suit do you wear?" he asked. "I'm not sure." "Here, try this one on." He took a blue jacket off the rack. "It's $40 regular." "Oh, I can't afford to buy a suit." "It doesn't cost anything to try it on." "Try it." He grabbed on the side of the rack as I slipped it on. It's too long." I looked at the price tag and frowned. He caught my eye, smiled, and shook his head. "You must wear a 38 short." He rifled through the row of suits with his right hand while holding on the top of the rack with his left one. "Here's one. It's light green. Do you like it?" At this point, I suspected he was going to offer to buy it for me. "Yes," I said, trying on the jacket. It fit perfectly. I grabbed the hanger and hung the jacket back with the trousers. I was about to place the suit back on the rack when Father O'Neill snatched it from me. "You're wearing this to your interview," he said firmly. "I'm buying it for you." I was speechless, even though I had guessed he wanted to buy it. My eyes welled up as I looked at him, giving me time to compose myself. He added, "Actually, I am not buying it. The Jesuit committee is." After what seemed an eternity, I finally said, "Thank you, Father. I'm sorry I don't have the words to tell you how much I appreciate this." "You're welcome. Someday you will do the same for someone else." I had the suit pants tailored to fit, and 2 days later, Father O'Neill and I picked them up at Macy's. He also bought me a white t-shirt to match and tie to match the suit. When we returned to his office, he gave me an apple and an orange and a set of plain square-shaped gold-colored cufflinks. "I want you to have these," he said, grinning. I've had them for years. I have another pair." I thanked him several times. As I was about to leave, he added, Don't forget, keep your head up. You'll do just fine in your interview. Trust in God." The day of the interview, I was as nervous as I had been the first day of classes in my freshman year. I felt sick to my stomach. I attended early morning mass at the Mission Church and had a slice of toast with strawberry jam and a cup of tea for breakfast. After my 2 morning classes, I went my room, put on a suit, had a light lunch in Benson, and drove to Stanford University in Ernick de Gasperis's Volkswagen, which I borrowed from him the night before. As I headed north on Highway 101, I regretted having to miss my afternoon class on contemporary Latin American literature. This was the 3rd time I had missed a class in college. The closer I got to Stanford, the more anxious I became. I took the Embarcadero Road exit, which turned into Galvez Street. The entrance to the campus was lined with palm trees, just like the entrance to the University of Santa Clara. I parked the car near a cluster of eucalyptus trees, which smelled like sweet gum. Their distinct odor reminded me of the time my family and I first arrived in Santa Maria from Mexico when I was 4 years old. We only had $7 and no place to stay, so we spent the night on a bed of leaves underneath the eucalyptus trees. I closed my eyes for a few seconds. "This feels like a dream," I thought to myself. I climbed out of the car and followed the directions to the quad, which had sandstone arches all around. I entered the main door to the history corner and spotted a small sign that read, "Woodrow Wilson Interviews, RM 105. I took a deep breath, wiped my clammy hands on the side of my coat, straightened my clip-on tie, and knocked on the door. A tall, thin man wearing a navy blue suit came out, greeted me, and introduced himself as Dr. Otis. Pease. I greeted I remembered his name because it registered in my mind as Dr. Chicaros, the Spanish word for peas. However, I was so nervous that I did not learn the names of the other two men who were also wearing suits and were very friendly. I sat at a rectangular wooden table facing with my feet wrapped around the legs of the chair to stop my legs from shaking. Each committee member had a file folder which I assumed contained my application and letters of recommendation. Dr. Peace, the chairman of the interview committee, began by commenting on my grades. "Your academic record is impressive," he said, opening his folder and glancing at it. "You have a 3.8 GPA overall in your last 2 years and a 3.9 in your major. Now tell us about yourself and why you're interested in a teaching career." While I spoke, the three men smiled periodically and glanced at each other. This made me feel more at ease. Once I finished my response, the other two interviewers engaged me in a discussion about Spanish literature and Latin American literature and history, for which I was thankful because I had taken several courses in the history of Mexico and South America from Dr. Matt Meyer, one of my favorite professors. At the end of the interview, Dr. Peace informed me that his committee would be making a recommendation to Woodrow Wilson National Committee, who in turn would be making a final decision. A few days later, I received a letter from Hans Rosenhaupt, the national director of the Woodrow Wilson National Fellowship Foundation. It read, "The selection committee, which interviewed you, has recommended you for an award, and the National Selection Committee has accepted the recommendation. I'm happy to offer you a Woodrow Wilson Fellowship for the academic year 1966-1967. Since only 1,400 fellows were elected this year from over 13,000 carefully chosen nominees, this election demonstrates a great confidence in your promise as a teacher and scholar. From funds supplied by the Ford Foundation, Woodrow Wilson Fellows receive a living stipend, free tuition, and fees at a graduate school of their choice, and their graduate school receives an additional subvention. While a Woodrow Wilson Fellow is not obliged to become a college teacher, he is expected to complete 1 year of graduate study and to give serious thought to a career in college teaching. The members of the National Selection Committee and trustees join me in a warm congratulations on the honor bestowed upon you." I could not believe it. I read the letter twice to make sure it was addressed to me, that I would not have to work as a prefect for a room and board or take out loans from the federal government was also impossible to believe. I said a prayer before the image of Virgin de Guadalupe tacked above my desk and dashed out of my room to thank and share the good news with everyone at the university who was close to me: Father Shanks, Father O'Neill, Dr. Vari, Laura, Emily, and Smokey. I called Roberto and Darlene and told them. They were as thrilled as I was and promised to tell the rest of the family. Once I calmed down that evening, a wave of fear came over me. What if I didn't have time to work while I was in graduate school to help my family? What if I failed graduate school? These thoughts kept me awake all night. The next morning, I felt exhausted and discouraged. I reread the letter and hurried to Dr. Walsh to see Father Shanks. "You need to have more self-confidence, Frank. There is no doubt in my mind that you'll succeed in graduate school. You wouldn't have been awarded the fellowship if you weren't capable of handling graduate work. Just think, with a doctorate, you'll be able to teach at a university or be a consultant to our government on international relations. With regard to your family, don't worry. Graduate fellowships provide stipends for dependents. Learning that fellowships made funds available for dependents and his confidence in me eased my worries. I could use the grant money to help support my family." 2 weeks before graduation, I received a second letter from Hans Rosenhaupt. encouraging me to attend Columbia University rather than Emory University, the two graduate schools to which I was advised to apply at the time I was nominated for Woodrow Wilson Fellowship. He wrote, "Considering the academic advantages, also the possibility of continued support of Columbia, I would urge you to accept Columbia's offer. Let me know by collect telegram if you are willing to attend Columbia University." After sending the telegram to Woodrow Wilson Foundation, informing them that I would be attending Columbia, I made a visit to Mission Church and gave thanks for this unexpected blessing.